Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another session of your virtual math class. My name is Miss Krista Newbold, and I work as a math teacher with Anatara Rogers High School. I am very excited to work with you. Today, we're going to be looking at consumer mathematics. In particular, we're going to spend time working on questions that deal with wages and salaries. So Susan asked her parents, Mary and Win, whether they were paid a wage or a salary. Together, they said that they get paid a paycheck, not a wage nor a salary. Susan then proceeded to tell her parents about wages and salaries. Here's our objective for today. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to solve consumer math problems involving wages and salaries. Before we get into this topic now, it's very important for us to, work on some definitions and understand what certain things mean when they come up. Starting with the terms wages and salaries. It's important for you to note that these two things are different. We use them together, we use them interchangeably sometimes, but they really are different. So here's what a wage is. A wage is usually paid on a daily or weekly basis. And it's going to be paid to manual or unskilled workers who are either paid an hourly rate or a piece rate. Salary. A salary is paid on a monthly or weekly basis and is often expressed as an annual sum. This is especially for those professional and white-collar workers. A few more definitions I want to look at. Gross pay. Your gross pay is the total amount of money that the employer pays to an employee. So, let's say you just got this job and you're told, or your employee says, okay, you're going to make $500 a week. That's the total amount of money that you make. But there are some special considerations that we need to look at when we consider how much money you'll actually take home. And that's where our net pay comes into play. Because your net pay is the total amount of money that the employee receives after all required and voluntary deductions are made. Now let's talk about some required deductions. In the Bahamas, each person that's employed and receives a pay is required to pay national insurance. And that's a deduction that's taken out of your pay before you actually get your paycheck. We also have, depending on where you work or what industry you work in, you might have union dues and fees that are required, mandatory. When we talk about voluntary deductions now, these are like your loans. You may choose to get let's say your mortgage deducted out of your salary, or you might have a car loan or maybe a loan for a piece of furniture. These are all salary deductions that are voluntary and they're taken out of your pay before you actually receive a check. We could also have money going to the credit union. Those are all deductions that are taken out. And so your net pay is going to be the money you actually receive after all of your deductions are taken out. All right, let's talk about overtime now. Any time worked beyond one's scheduled hours is considered overtime. So let's say your job descriptions say that you're to work 40 hours per week. Well, anything in addition to those 40 hours would be considered overtime. So if you work 45 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, anything in addition to that is going to be, in addition to the 40 hours, is going to be overtime. The thing about overtime is, in most, if not all cases, you are paid more to work overtime. You're paid at a higher rate. And so either it's going to be time and a half that you're paid, double time or triple time, depending on where you are. Deduction. This is the act or process of subtracting a sum of money. And so like we talked about earlier, we have our required, and then our voluntary deductions that are taken out of our pay before we even receive a paycheck. So what we're going to do, we're going to spend some time looking at 3 questions together. Then I have 3 questions that I want you to be able to work on your own, and we're going to go through all of it at the end. So here's our first example, and I'm going to read through the question. It says to me, last week, Kenzie worked 8 hours each day, Monday to Friday, together with 6 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. Hours worked on the weekend are paid at time and a half. She is paid $6.50 per hour normally from Monday to Friday. Calculate A, her basic wage, B, her overtime wage, C, her gross pay for the week. So let's get into this question. A, I'm asked to find her basic wage. And so what's important for me to do at this point, I'm going to identify what parts of the question speak to her basic wage. So I know that she works 8 hours each day from Monday to Friday, and that's her basic work week, because they do tell me that, you know, when she works on the weekend, that's paid at time and a half, which is overtime. So I'm not going to consider what happens on Saturday and Sunday just yet. And then they also told me that she's paid $6.50 per hour from Monday to Friday. Okay, so these are 2 very important pieces of information that I need to use to calculate her basic wage. So let's go ahead now and calculate that. Question A, basic wage. That's going to be equal to the number of hours she worked. Well, let's see how much hours she worked first. So before I can even calculate that, I need to find out how many hours she worked. So let's start with that first. Hours worked. I know she worked 8 hours. She worked for 8 hours per day, and she worked Monday to Friday, which was 5 days. So in total, she would have worked 40 hours. Now I can easily calculate her basic wage, because I'm going to multiply the amount of hours she worked, which in this case is 40, times the amount of money she's paid per hour, which is $6.50. So for this week in total, she made $260. $260. And that's her basic wage. That doesn't include overtime yet, and definitely not her any salary deductions. So I'm going to move this to the side. I know that so far her basic wage, she's going to be paid $260. All right, now let's move on to question B. Part B says, calculate her overtime wage. Well, again, it's important for me to identify from the question what information I'm given about her overtime. And here's what they say. The question says to me that she works 6 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. Then they also say hours worked on the weekend are paid at time and a half. So those 2 pieces of information really give me all that I need to know when I'm calculating her overtime wage. So let's first determine how many hours she worked. All right, question B, overtime hours. And that's going to be equal to 6 hours on Saturday plus 4 hours on Sunday, which is a total of 10 hours. So she worked 10 hours overtime. Now that I know that, I also need to know her overtime rates. Move this over a little. All right, her overtime rates. In this case, they tell me that she is paid time and a half, which means whenever you do see that, time and a half tells me to take her regular rate or regular pay per hour and multiply it by 1.5. And that's going to tell me how much she makes for 1 hour of overtime. And so I'm going to take the $6.50 that she makes per hour and multiply that by 1.5. And I'm going to find that she makes $9.75 per hour of overtime. So every hour of overtime she works, she's going to be paid $9.75. And so so now let's actually get to answer the question. Her overtime wage is going to be equal to the number of hours she worked, which in this case is 10 hours of overtime, multiplied up by the amount of money she makes for overtime, which is $9.75 per hour. When I calculate that, I find that she is going to be paid $97.50 for all of her overtime hours worked. And that's my answer for question B. Let's now look at the last part of this question, question C. Calculate her gross pay for the week. Well, gross pay is going to be her basic wage added together with her overtime wage. Question C. Gross pay. Her gross pay in this case is equal to $260 plus $97.50 . So for this particular week, Kenzie made $357.50. All right. I think this is a very straightforward question and very typical of what, your wages and salary questions would look like. You could be asked to find the basic wage, then find your overtime wage, and then your gross pay. So let's clear my screen and we're going to now look at another question. All right, this question says, at a Coca-Cola factory, the basic week is 36 hours. During a particular week, Mr. Roberts earned a gross wage of $360, but $90 was overtime earnings. Overtime is paid at time and a half. Calculate, and we have 4 parts to this question. A, Mr. Roberts' pay before overtime earnings were added. B, Mr. Roberts' basic rate of pay. C, Mr. Roberts' overtime rate. And D, the number of overtime hours Mr. Roberts worked. All right, so we are first asked to find Mr. Roberts' pay before overtime earnings were added. Again, I'm going to go back to my question and see what piece of information is given to help me find that answer or work out my answer. And the question told me that his gross wage is $360, but $90 of that was overtime earnings. So I know that he made $360, but of that $360, $90 was overtime. And so I can easily determine how much he made before overtime was earned or overtime was added in. And that's going to give me his basic wage. So I'll call this basic wage. Mr. Roberts' basic wage is going to be $360. Take away the $90. In this week, or in this case, his basic wage would be $270. Alrighty, let's move on to part B. Part B says, calculate Mr. Roberts' basic rate of pay. Okay, well, I already know how much he's paid for a basic week. For a basic week, according to question A, he made $270. And then we also know how much hours he worked in a basic week. The question told me, and I want to change my ruler color. The question told me that a basic week is 36 hours. And so if I put these two pieces of information together, we can easily find his basic rate of pay. Basic rate of pay. Here's what I know. I know that for 36 hours, he received $270. So I could find 1 hour. 1 hour is going to be equal to 270 divided by 36. 1 hour is equal to $7.50. So for 1 hour of work, he's going to get paid $7.50. And really all that was just me working backwards from the concepts I would have, went over in the previous question. Let's get into question C. Mr. Roberts' overtime rate. Again, the question has given me all that I need to find his overtime rate. So let's look at that. They tell me that overtime is paid at time and a half. And they also tell me that he gets $90 in overtime earnings. So those two pieces of information together can easily help me find his overtime rates. So let's get a text box and let's work out question C. All right, question C, overtime rate. Let me move my text box down a little. All right, overtime rate. Since he made $90 of overtime, no, I'm sorry. Not the $90. What we do know is that 1 hour is equal to $7.50. And so his overtime rate is going to be $7.50. Go back. All right, his overtime rate is going to be $7.50 multiplied by 1.5, since I'm told that his overtime is calculated at time and a half. All right, much better. So that's $7.50 times 1.5. In this case, he's going to make, or he makes $11.25 per hour of overtime. And it should make sense that, he's going to get paid more for overtime than a regular hour of work. Okay, let's move on now to question D. Question D says, calculate the number of overtime hours Mr. Roberts worked. That's where that $90 is going to come in, because I know that he made $90 worth of overtime and he's paid $11.25 per hour. So question D, overtime hours equals $90 divided by $11.25. In this case, he worked off of this particular week, he would have worked 8 hours once I, put that into my calculator. And there you have it. I've worked the 4 parts of this question. And I want you to take note of the special attention I paid to my working. It's okay to make mistakes, but as you go along, it's very important to always check your work and make corrections where necessary. So we're going to clear my screen, and I have another question to look at. And this question is going to look at annual salary now. So we're told that Maria's gross annual salary is $37,800. Every month, the following deductions are made: $52.50 for pension, $113.22 for national insurance, $823.67 for income tax. Calculate Maria's A, gross monthly salary, and then B, her net monthly salary. Well, A asked me to find her gross monthly salary. I do know how much she makes annually. Her gross annual salary is $37,800. So I can use that to find her monthly salary. Only thing that I need to know that's not in this question is how many months are in a year. And that's a basic one, right? So A, gross monthly salary equals 37,800 divided by 12. And when I work it out, I find that she makes $3,150. And that was simple to find because I know if she made $37,800 for the whole year, I just divided it equally by the amount of months, which was 12, and I got my answer. Alrighty, let's move on now to B. B says to me her net monthly pay. Remember earlier we talked about the net monthly pay being the actual amount of money a person receives after all of the deductions are made. And she, in this case, had 3 deductions. So 3 different sets of money that was coming out of her pay. She had $52.50 for pension, $113.22 for national insurance, and then $823.67 for income tax. This is how much money is taken out of her salary each week before she actually receives it. Each month, sorry, not each week. So question B, net monthly pay. But before I can actually find her net monthly pay, I need to know her total deductions. How much money in total is taken out of her salary? So we're going to do that first. Total deductions. Her total deductions equal $52.50 plus $113.22. I'll make my tax box a little bit bigger. Plus $823.67. And so this is the total amount of money that's taken out of her paycheck each month. And again, if we look at these, the national insurance for a fact is a mandatory deduction. The Income tax, depending on where you live, is also a mandatory deduction. And her pension could be a voluntary one because she's preparing for her future, which is very important for us to do. And so we're going to add the three of those together. And so when I do calculate them, I find that each month she is paying a total of $889.39 in just deductions. And so for me to find her net monthly pay, I start with her gross salary or her gross monthly pay, which in this case is $3,150. And I'm going to subtract from that $989.39. When I subtract, I find that she's going to be paid $2,160.61. So that's part, I'll leave that there. That's part B of the question. And again, I've taken my time to show all the working and as well as to show all of my steps. It's also a very good strategy to make sure I've read the question properly. And it's okay to underline key terms and phrases. So I've looked at 3 questions, and now I'm going to do the same for you. I'm going to give you 3 questions to work on, and then we'll come back together and answer them together so that you can check your work. Right? So we have some guided practice where you're going to practice the question and then we'll come back and do it together. Here's your first problem. Okay, so I trust that was sufficient time. Let's look at the question together now. So it says to me, Marcia, a secretary, works a 40-hour week at $8 per hour. Calculate her basic wage. Well, we could do that. We can handle that. Her basic wage would have been 40 multiplied by $8. And that works out to be $320. Now I'm told she also works 6 hours overtime on Saturday at double time. Well, and I should have said it earlier, time and a half was 1.5. Whenever we see double time, that means you're going to make exactly double how much you make for a basic hour. And so since she made $8 for her regular hour, her overtime rate is going to be $8 multiplied by 2. And so for every hour of overtime worked, she gets paid $16. Her overtime pay now is going to be, in this case, she worked 6 hours multiplied by $16. So she makes $16 per hour. And that works out to be $96. Now her gross pay, again, is the total of amount of money that she receives. Gross pay is going to be $320 plus $96, which in this case is $416. And this is what a typical question that you can see on the BGCSE looks like. This is what the different parts of the question are going to ask you to find her basic wage, her over. And you know what? So this might be a question. Let me use my spotlight. You might get a question to find her basic wage, but then another question might ask you just to find her overtime rate. So this might be another part of the question. And then, there might be another question to find the overtime pay. And that could be followed up by finding her gross pay for the week. But like I said, this is a very typical question for the BGCSE. And not just for the BGCSE, I want you to think about real life. This is a real life scenario that could happen. And so it's important for you to know how to calculate your pay. All right, so we're going to clear that question, and now I'm going to give you another one to work on. Okay, so let's go through this question together. Mrs. Joseph, a seamstress, works a 38-hour week for which she is paid $266. During the carnival season, she works 6 hours overtime on Saturday at double time and 2 hours overtime on Sunday at triple time. And so because they started telling me about double time and triple time, I know that Saturday and Sunday would be considered overtime hours for her. But let's get into talking about what is her basic rate of pay. Again, I'm going to go back to the question to see what that question speaks to me about her basic pay. I know that she worked, her basic work week would be 38 hours. And for that time, she's paid $266. So that from that, I can easily determine her basic rate of pay. I can say that, she makes, let me write it out like this, 38 hours, equals 266, which means 1 hour is going to be equal to 266 divided by 38. And again, when I calculate that, 266 divided by 38, that's equal to $7, and I'll put per hour, which tells me that she's paid $7 per hour. That's her basic rate of pay. Now B says, calculate her gross wage for a week in the carnival season. Okay, we already know her basic pay. Her basic pay is $266, but I need to consider what's happening on Saturday and Sunday. So they tell me that she works, let's get a different color. All right, she works 6 hours overtime on Saturday at double time. So let's deal with that first before we consider Sunday. So let's deal with how much she's paid for Saturday. For Saturday, I need to know her, and I'll put OT for overtime, her overtime rate. Instead of being paid $7 per hour, they tell me that she's paid at double time. So that's going to be $7 multiplied by 2 for double time. And so for overtime on Saturday, she's going to make $14 per hour. Overtime pay. Well, she makes $14 per hour, and she worked a total of 6 hours. And so when I multiply those two, 14 times 6, I find that for Saturday alone, she would have made a total of $84. So let's look at what we know. We know for a basic week, Monday to Friday, she made $266. And then we also know that on Saturday, she made $84. Now let's look at what happens on Sunday. So, well, let's read the question first and identify what pieces of information is there about Sunday. All right, so they tell me that she gets 2 hours, or she worked 2 hours of overtime on Sunday at triple time. That's my information right there. That's everything I need. So just like I did for Saturday, I'm going to do the same. I start by finding my overtime rate, and it's based off of that $7, but because it's triple time, now I'm going to multiply by 3. And 7 times 3 is $21. Her overtime pay is going to be equal to, I think they told us that she worked 2 hours, so it's going to be $21 times 2, which tells me that she made a total of $42 for Sunday. So now we got to think to ourselves, did we answer the question? Did we find out how much her gross wage was? And not quite. What we've done so far, we know how much she gets paid for a basic week, which is $266. We know for Saturday, she's going to get paid $84. And then for Sunday, she's going to get paid $42. And so to finish it up, and I'm going to bring my answer up here. Gross wage is equal to 266 plus 84 plus 42. Her gross wage is going to be, when I calculate it, $391. All right. And again, another very typical question that you could be asked to answer on the BGCSE. What I like about this topic is that this is very, very important to every person that's looking to go and get a job, because you need to know how you will get paid. Alrighty, let's look at one more question. And this question is going to be one that deals with annual salary. All right, there you go. All right, so let's finish up this question. Mr. Roll is a lawyer with a gross annual salary of $144,000. Every month, $248 for national insurance, $139.17 for pension, and $3,000 for alimony is deducted from his salary. And we're not going to do the working. I'm going to give you the answers, because I trust that up to this point, you should be able to work this out. What is his gross monthly salary? When you calculated, you should have found that his gross monthly salary was $12,000. Calculate his monthly deductions, and that's all of those things that are deducted, added together. Every month, he pays a total of $3,387.17 in deductions. And so his net pay is going to be the difference between the two. And that's how much money he takes home each month, a total of $8,612.83. Okay. Again, this is another question that's very typical and that can come on the BGCSE. So let's quickly recap a few of the things we discussed today. We talked about gross pay versus net pay, right? I want you to always remember that the gross pay is the total amount that the employer is going to pay the employee. But your net pay is the actual amount that an employee takes home. And so this amount is going to be what the employee makes after salary deductions are taken out. Salary deductions could be national insurance, pension, any loans you might have, or any number of things. Another thing I want you to remember when it comes to overtime, when we're told that we're paid at a rate of time and a half, we multiply our basic rate by 1.5. If it's double time, our basic rate is going to be multiplied by 2. If it's triple time, our basic rate will be multiplied by 3. And that's going to give me my overtime rates. Again, I am, very adamant that this is an important topic, because you need to know how to calculate your wage and your salary when the time comes. All right. Let me clear my screen. We're going to go to the last slide. And it's just to thank you all for coming and participating in our session. I hope that everyone that sees this is safe. And, you know, I am happy that you were able to engage in this session. Please take care of yourself. Until next time.